Trent, do we have anybody virtual? Great. Well, we welcome everybody to our board meeting, both in person that are virtual with us. The agendas are posted around the room, as you can see. And we have a full quorum. All board members are here. It's nice to have everybody with us. We will begin our meeting tonight with the Pledge of Allegiance by Dr. Rod Belknap would lead us in that. Dr. Belknap, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Dr. Belknap. He's our CTE coordinator. That was a short notice. Our first item on the agenda would be the consent calendar. I'd entertain a motion to accept.
So moved.
So moved by Doug, second by Jan. Any discussion, board? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, the motion carries. Thank you. The next item would be recognition of the Weber High School DECA and FBLA clubs. Dr. Belknap, please.
Superintendent, board, appreciate the opportunity to recognize three of our fine educators from Weber High School here tonight. And I want to start out by saying that schools are made up of great teams. And teams are oftentimes, if you look back at history, they're made up of the greatest trios of all time. So if you look up there here, this was just, in my mind, the greatest trios of all time. It was my daughter that brought up Harry Potter. I actually don't know these people. But I will say that the other trios that you see there are legendary, including the Bee Gees, the Three Tenors, and my personal favorite movie, The Three Amigos. And so great teams are made up of these trios, a couple of great basketball teams there, and of course, Star Wars. This is a team for the ages, board. There's no team really like it. When you're trying to assemble a team, you're trying to find people who resemble a team that is functional, that works well as a group, and is incredibly talented. And if you look at the individuals in this picture, they really exhibit what I call the 3 T's: teamwork, talent, and trust. These are the elements that a good trio has. And when you look at these individuals, Angie Larson, Alan Rollins, and Kyle Stanger, they're no different than Kareem, James Worthy, and Magic. And so we look at Angie, Alan, and Kyle and the amazing things that they've done at Weber High School. And I want to start out by reading a quote, and I appreciate Chris Ernest being here tonight. She's the principal at Weber High School. And she said individually, these three make connections with students. They inspire students to rise above the norm, and they support all students in their efforts. For Angie, every day is fabulous. Alan never overlooks even the smallest detail, and Kyle successfully takes on everything and says he can do more. Collectively, these three make a complete team, as their strengths complement each other. They know what has to be done and how to do it, and their leadership abilities build confidence in our kids, which equates to unequaled success. They love what they do, and they are the dream team times 10. I am honored to be able to work with them, and I feel the same way. I've known Alan for a long time. We started in education about the same time. Same with Angie. It's been an honor to kind of have our educational paths congruently. I found Kyle and have wanted him I've wanted him in our district for a long time. He's a young educator who's just starting to see the impact that he can make, and he's teamed with individuals who can help him realize his potential and see what's truly important. I love the quote, that alone we can do so little, but together we can do so much. These individuals, they started an academy 2 years ago called the Warrior Business Academy. And really what this effort is an effort to collaborate and work together for a common vision, a single vision. So here you have these three incredible teachers. And those of you that know competitive teachers, you know sometimes they'll actually work solely on their own. But these incredible educators work together for one single vision. An example of that is just in these pictures. The hundreds and hundreds of kids over the last few years who they've impacted. Now, when they come into their class, you have to remember, these teachers are bought out every year. They're so popular that each of their classes are always full. So they'll have a full 6 periods, but then they'll also have a 7th and an 8th period in most cases because students want to be in their classes. And these are classes that are challenging for these teachers because I taught business marketing and I had 4 and 5 preps every year, meaning I taught 4 or 5 completely different classes. That's what they do. Every year they're teaching entrepreneurship and retailing and online business and educator rising classes and marketing and sports marketing and on and on and on. And these are difficult things to do, and they test in every one of these areas. And remarkably, all of their end of their skills tests in each of their areas, that is, they're giving 5 and 6 different tests, are the highest in the district. So it's remarkable what they do. So this is a picture of them in Atlanta. They went to Atlanta this past year for National DECA, and then Chicago will be National FBLA, and so they'll be there also. Want to recognize the first T, and that is teamwork. As you look up there, this year they went to the Aggie Invitational. 93 students participated in this season's opening competition. A few other numbers that you'll see up there. DECA, 97 members. You probably couldn't take a combination of all of the other schools in the district and equal 97. That's just a measure of what they're doing at Weber High. FBLA, 62. 53 of these students are members of both clubs. Now, that's remarkable because they have to talk to each other, these teachers. They have to say, and some of them have to, as competitive as they are, they have to say, go ahead and go with Kyle today. That's not easy to do because they would like to see these students all the time, and yet this is the sort of selflessness that they have for the benefit of students. So that's what I love about them is they share things even though personally they would like to just have the students to themselves. DECA had the most chapter participants at region and state competitions this year. FBLA had the 3rd largest membership in the state. This year there were 19 state champions in FBLA, 17 state champions in DECA. This is national participants. I mean, what happened during COVID, because so frequently in CTSOs, students will do it because they might travel. But then during COVID, you were not going to travel. So they...
Tell them CTSO.
I'm sorry, yep. So student organizations. So like FFA and DECA and all of these student organizations. So many of them couldn't travel. They couldn't go to nationals. And so that was disappointing. And we saw a bit of a dip in enrollment in some of our CTSOs during COVID. But take a look at this. These people, these individuals, these incredible teachers just amped it up. They had to really sell it and really work with students and say, hey, we can still do this. And this is how we're going to do it. And you look up here, they were held virtually, COVID. And you see FBLA numbers went up, DECA numbers went up. And it's just a remarkable, really a remarkable thing from 14, 23, 24. In DECA, you had 44, 33, 43. Those aren't easy numbers to maintain or to increase. Second T, talent. These are educators with talent. FBLA, and it shows some of the awards that are up there. FBLA Northern Region Outstanding Chapter of the Year. That's 6 consecutive years that Weber High School has held that distinction in the state. So this isn't a 3-peat, this is a 6-peat going on. DECA, Northern Region Outstanding Chapter of the Year. Both clubs were named Outstanding Chapter of the Year all schools in the entire state. So this is just 6A or 5A or 2A. This is all the schools throughout the state. This is the outstanding chapter of the year. The second time DECA and FBLA have won this honor. First time in the state of Utah, the same school won the outstanding chapter of the year for both clubs in the same year. Really neat this year. Alan Rollins was named the advisor of the year for FBLA, and Kyle Stanger was named the DECA new advisor of the year in his first year at Weber High School. Angie Larson teaches our TAP class there at Weber High School. She had 5 students going to Ed Rising and Nationals for Educators Rising this year, and 3 state champions. One really neat thing, and Angie, I had to go back through all my pictures. I think this is 4 years ago I took this picture. But I went in one day to her class, and she had on the coolest shirt ever. And if you look up there, it says be the reason good in people, goodness in people. If you know Angie, every Friday she has a different positive message that she wears these shirts, and it really is something else that she does in her class. If you ever walk into her class, it's the most positive place in the world. And she exudes that. That's why when you're wondering who should we pick to be the teacher of our future teachers, and that's the mentor right there that you would pick, because that's the kind of person she is we want her to have as much influence on our future educators as possible, and you can see what an impact that's made. I mentioned earlier that not only do they provide extended opportunities after school, but their in-class instruction is second to none. They lead the district in skills testing every year, every semester. Angie's in year 24, and Alan's year 23, and there's Kyle in year 4. How does that feel, Kyle? I mean, yeah, you get a little bit. That's all right. The beard's helping, though. That's good. Right. So it's great to have these teachers. For the past 2 years, they've hosted the Warrior Invitation. This will tell you that they're making DECA and FBLA better across the state. It's not just about them. They want to try to make DECA and FBLA better for the entire state. And so they host this event where other schools can come and participate. The third T is trust. Trust in teachers and each other. Some of you may have seen that you've participated in the trust fall before, where you close your eyes and you lean back and you hope that someone catches you. There's a funny video where somebody falls forward instead of back, and that's not that funny, but it is something. The fact of the matter is most students look at our teachers and say, tell me what's ahead for me. What is it that I need to know? How do I need to be successful in the world? Parents do this. Teachers do this. We trust these students. If you've ever been in their classroom, even for 5 minutes, they love these teachers. They love them. They go in at lunch. They go in between class periods. They have standing jokes with them. These are people that they look up to. And as these students age, they look back at these teachers and they say, you were right. You were right. That's all the things that you said I needed to know, the skills that I was gaining, that I was acquiring in your class, that you said, you can be good at this. These are things that you can do. These are the kinds of things that these teachers have made an entire career of inspiring students. And that's the great thing about it. When you look at these, we'll get emails that'll say, do you want to participate in the Market Star sales competition? Now, you could just hit delete and act like you didn't get the email or not participate in it. Oh, no. What do? They assemble a group of kids who they feel like, and it's not always the kids that are the best students. It's not always their most talented students. These teachers pick kids that can grow. They help them believe in themselves, that I can be better, I can do great things. And so they go to the Market Star sales competition, finish first and second in individual selling, in second and third place, and the students actually win money. So their winnings this past year was at $46,000. The students are winning cash prizes. They're investing that money into future education and a car or something else. I don't know what else they're investing it in, but let's say future education. 2 DECA state officers are elected, and they encourage leadership. So when you look up there, They encourage their students to engage in leadership opportunities, and there they are right there, 2022, 2021, 2020, and 2018. These students generally, I know because I was a DEC advisor for 11 years, these students generally aren't coming to you saying, Mr. Stanger, I have a feeling I should be a DECA state advisor. No. What happens is there's some convincing that goes on by the teacher to encourage them that they can do this. They would be good at this. This would be a good experience for you. And so none of these things happen up here by accident. And that's important to know because these students need these teachers to remind them that they can do hard things. That kind of encouragement we've all been the beneficiary of, and I just think that's inspiring. I love the quote there at the bottom because it's talking about Tim. This is from Tim Border. You can't see it there, but Tim Border is a professor of sales up at Weber State, and he said kids coming from Weber High are on the radar of colleges because of how well prepared they are. Weber is making a name for themselves. This is Tim Border, a professor up at in the College of Sales up there, and these are students that he's keeping an eye on that can get an opportunity down the road. So it's not just success in high school, but these individuals are pointing kids to success well beyond secondary schools into post-secondary opportunities. So when you look at the final slide here, service. It's great with DECA, FBLA, and Ed Rising. There's always this opportunity to take a project and turn it into service. And what they've done is they've found important social elements in a school that are needed. And they'll point these individuals. So they've done bullying prevention, suicide awareness, voter registration. They actually helped make buddy benches that go at the elementary schools in that cone. Food pantry implementation. This was highlighted in KSL earlier this year. Some remarkable things that all those clubs or groups are doing to provide food for individuals in the Weber cone. And the students were actually running this program up there. And so that's just great. Wanted to recognize, too, something that Jill Hess, who is the state DECA advisor, had to say. The Weber High School Business and Marketing program is the envy of the state. Kyle and Angie are the perfect team. Kyle is always an advocate for his students. He doesn't say no, and he helps his students figure out how to do it for their success. Everything he does is for his students. And Angie's organization, positivity, and pure love of her students drive them to succeed. The fact that they are successful not only as individual teachers, but also as a department team, an advisor team, truly shows what kind of people they are. Weber High Business and Marketing and DECA will only become stronger because of them. And so they provide service. There's a lot of information up here, but basically what CTSOs do is they increase graduation rates. They provide students an opportunity to make a relevant and important connection with teachers. They need this for their own social and emotional wellness and for their connection to peers. So it's not just about winning, but they learn employability skills, valuable employability skills there like communication and creativity, grit and responsibility. They feel better about themselves, and they actually feel like they belong to the school because they have a reason to be a part of it. So these are all sort of outgrowths. And when I first started as the CT director, I made a challenge to our teachers, and that was to grow your O, grow your CTSO. And look at what they've done. They've been about this for a long time. It wasn't my invitation. Any kind of support that I've been able to give them is just telling them, great job. Thank you so much for the investment that you make into students. They are mentors to our students. They inspire them every single day. The quote up there that I thought defined them the most was, there's no significant learning that occurs without a significant relationship. They start out each day creating that relationship. Learning in a sense comes second to them, or as a result of the relationships that they forge. And that is so critical for each of them. 2 weeks ago, I was in a school that had a sign on the outside of the door of a teacher. And the sign said, "You are leaving better than when you entered." The truth of the matter is any student that's ever been in Alan Rollins' class, Angie Larson's class, or Kyle Stanger's class is better for having been in their classroom than they were when they entered. And I think that's what we want to say about all of our students as they come into our classrooms, that we're all better. I'm better personally for having known them. They inspire me, and they make me want to continue to support our programs, grow them, and celebrate what is out there. Truth is they provide a place for everyone to blossom, to bloom. And I think that's really what a great teacher does, is when you get in there, they may not have thought that they could become something before, but certainly after they're finished with their class, they have a vision of themselves that these teachers have inspired. So I want to thank the board for this opportunity to celebrate 3 amazing educators and ask if they would please come up and maybe introduce those that are here. Board, round of applause for Alan, Angie, and Kyle.
So much for having us here tonight, board, and thank you, Rod and Trevor and all of those that helped put this together for us. Ooh, I'm gonna get emotional. My hubby's here, and I'm so grateful for him. And then my 3 best friends, all the way from 7th grade, are here too to support me tonight. And that means not. We're also going to the New Kids on the Block concert in a minute. So. I think that one of the secrets to our success is that we like each other. We're friends. I care about Alan and I care about Kyle on a personal level. We all love our jobs. We wake up every morning and we're excited to come to school, but we also really like each other. And I think that makes a really great combo. And I just want them to know how much I appreciate and love working with them. Thank you.
Nobody's here for me. I'm a Cache Valley boy. I think I know you're here, but
We're all here for you.
I think they're watching. I sent them the link, but just thank you for the opportunity to be recognized tonight. Superintendent, it's been 10 years since I made the switch back, so thank you for supporting me in that. I just wanted to say that right now, so thank you.
So, oh man, this is when I realized I'm the shortest of all of us. Ugh. I have my wife and my 2 kids with me, Megan, and then my dad joined me as well, Dave Stanger, who was an educator here for 36 years. I just wanted to thank him for what he did. As a joke, when I was trying to decide what I wanted to do in life, he said, "I will support you in anything but teaching." And so, being the rebellious kid that I was, he knew that meant that I'd be a teacher. So, thank you for the inspiration that he's been to me. Thank you for my team and for Rod and Trevor for the support that you guys have given me. Thank you guys.
Let's see, Trevor. Yeah. And Chris, will you come up? Can I also take a moment of personal privilege and say what an honor it is to have one of my former students. I taught Angie in the 7th grade and the 9th grade, and there must have been a typo up there when they said you taught. I don't even know what it is.
You gotta go this way. Nice job, Dr. Belknap. When Dr. Stevens talks about having a student of his. Dr. Stevens last night as a superintendent in a board meeting is tonight. And so if, you know, I didn't want his student to leave, I wanted him to bring that chart back in and wave it for him. And I was gonna wait till the end of the meeting, but this is most appropriate when he has two of them that he's recognized as being his students. And Dr. Stevens is going to retire as our superintendent, a legacy that can never be broke, and a mentor and a coach. And he's got his lovely bride, Leela, with us. And I'd like him to just stand, take a bow, and let's give him a round of applause. We love him to death. We're gonna miss him. Miss Butters will get her chance in a month or so, but tonight's Jeff's. So we thank you, Dr. Stevens. We're gonna miss you, but you deserve to fly off into the sunset along with the Warriors of the West when they come in, and you and your grandkids enjoy life. I know you started it, but you know what? We sure appreciate what you've done for the Weber Way, kids, mostly kids, and also staff. So thank you. Board, our next item would be a discussion and action item on the ratification of employee contracts. Mr. Larry Hadley, please.
Good evening, Board. I'm going to hurry because I just got the call I'm opening for New Kids on the Block. Jeff, I'll tell you what that is later.
I don't want to know.
I know. Well, it's my pleasure tonight to bring in front of you the negotiations. We began in March of a couple of months ago. We were able to finish the last of May. And we want to appreciate the teams, the WESP team, the WA team, and our teams. Robert was a part of that. We had some principals a part of that. This year in negotiations, there were 87 points brought to our attention to either talk about or negotiate through. We ended up ratifying, I think, a total of 47 of them. This is in your board book. There are two groups that I'm presenting tonight, the educators and the WESP. The biggest things, as everybody know, was the lane changes, step increases, base increase in the insurance. And we were able to settle through Dr. Stevens and Dr. Peterson, they come through. We were able to have a 7.50 base increase. We funded steps and lanes, and we kept the insurance kind of a little different project, but we went to a tiered plan, which actually lowered the cost for some on the med plan and raised it just slightly for those on a value plan. So now we're actually on a tiered plan, which will be better in the long run, I do believe, and the insurance committee was involved in that. We hit a lot of the highlights for you inside of your book. There was a lot of edits, adjustments, word changes, language changes. We've been able to update the format of all the agreements, and so in doing so, some of the numbering became off. So there were some number changes, but both the WEA and the WSP boards ratified with their groups in May, and I bring this in front of you tonight for ratification. Any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Hadley.
You're welcome.
I believe we'll entertain a motion to accept the ratification of the employee contract. Moved by Janice, second by Paul. Any discussion, board? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you for your
Okay.
work and the team's work, Larry. We appreciate it. Job well done. They are important people that you just took care of. Our next major item on the agenda would be the approval of the beginning of the process of naming the new junior high in West Haven. Superintendent to be, Gina Butters, please.
President Ritchie, great board, Superintendent Stevens. We just finished the process of naming the new high school, as you know, and due to deadlines that are approaching and the soaring cost of materials and different things, our construction process, we're to the point where we need to start the process as per policy 6600 to begin to assemble a committee. And we're asking for your recommendation to appoint the leader of that committee as Brock Mitchell, who is our new secondary director, and let him get started on putting that committee together so that we can move through that process of finding a great new name for the new high school. Naming the high school will involve a name, a mascot, and excuse me, I've got the high school in my mind. Sorry about that. Junior high school, name, mascot, and also the school colors. So I would just make a recommendation that we allow that process to begin as per District Policy 6600.
Board, I entertain a motion to accept the presentation you just heard from Ms. Butters. Moved by Jan, second by Bruce. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Time to go to work. Additional administrative appointment. Ms. Butters.
Awesome. All right. Due to some unforeseen circumstances, we have had to call upon two individuals that they're ready, but we've had to make an adjustment and make an additional appointment for administrative assignment. That created a little bit of a trickle effect. And so let me just outline really quickly those appointments. And then what we'd like to do is make the recommendation, get your support on those recommendations, and we'll circle back and introduce you to the two new administrative appointments. The first one, we've asked Shane Denton, who has been an outstanding intern at Bonneville High School for the Lakers, to move to Fremont High School and become a new assistant principal out at Fremont High School. That left a vacancy at Bonneville as an intern, administrative intern, and we are asking a great educator from Roy High School, longtime educator, social studies teacher, department head, Melinda Stimpson, to step into a new role as an administrative intern at Bonneville High School. So I would like to make those recommendations to you first for your approval, and then I'll tell you a little bit about each one.
Thank you, Ms. Butters. Board, you've heard the presentation on administrative appointments. I'd entertain a motion to accept. Janice, second by Paul. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you. So let me tell you a little bit about Shane. Shane, why don't you pop up here for me? This is just an outstanding educator and leader. I'm so excited for this opportunity for him. But Shane had his bachelor's in chemistry from Weber State University. He's got a master's in educational leadership from Southern Utah University. He has spent 24 years as an educator in our district, and all of them, except for this last year, were at Fremont High School. So he's going full circle. He's going back to the Silver Wolves, which I think is outstanding for him and for the school. He's coached football, wrestling at Fremont. He was the PM principal for 15 years. He's been married for 26 years to a beautiful wife, Christy, back there. They have 2 sons and a grandson. They all have the Denton smile, I believe, in looking at all of them tonight. And he enjoys spending time with his family, riding four-wheelers and collecting sports memorabilia. So we're excited for Shane, and I'll let him introduce his family to you and speak to you for just a sec.
First off, I'd like to say thank you, Board, for your vote of confidence, and Mrs. Butters and Dr. Stevens. And this is my family, my wife, Christy, my son, Mason, my daughter.
There we go.
My daughter-in-law, Allie, and my son, Dallin. And I would just like to say how thankful I am for this opportunity. It was a little weird. I'd spent 23 years at Fremont, which, for most people, that seems to be about a career. And going to Bonneville, I loved going to Bonneville. There was nothing like being able to learn from Brock, one of the best there is. But I am excited to be going back to Fremont, where my kids went, and I taught for several years. So thank you for this opportunity.
We're sure excited for Shane. All right, and then our second appointment, Melinda Stimpson, is going to join us virtually thanks to the magic over there with Trent Bills. Melinda, let me go ahead and introduce you first, okay? Melinda's been at Roy High School, but let me tell you a little bit about how the other years she's spent in our district. She's a graduate of Weber State University and Southern Utah University, master's in education. She's been 26 years in education. She's taught at science and coached volleyball at T.H. Bell, history at Roy Jr. She's been an assistant soccer coach at those schools, Serves on our equity committee, learning team. She's a driver's education instructor at Roy High School. Currently, she and her husband Chad have 4 kids, 2 grandsons, and a granddaughter on the way in July. They love to travel. I believe she's in South Carolina right now, so good for her. Swim, bike, and they're very active in their community. Melinda, like I said, will be the new administrative intern at Bonneville High School for the Lakers. Melinda, go ahead.
Thank you. I really just wanted to thank you for giving me this opportunity. And I know Dr. Belknap talked about great teams were in 3s, and I'm looking forward to being the 4th musketeer maybe at Bonneville, and so excited to go back to that cone. I started there and just loved the people there and have just loved my career in education, and I just can't wait to get going and move forward. And I'd love to introduce my family, but I think they're all over the place right now, so I'm the only one here.
Thank you for joining us, Melinda. Welcome. Board, we're just bringing in 2 great individuals, so thank you for your support.
Thank you, Gina. Job well done. Our next item would be the approval of the 2021-2022 budget. Dr. Robert Peterson, please. While you're passing them out, I want to recognize Preston and Matt that are with us. It's part of a financial team that we have at the district. So welcome you two while we had just a second.
I'm going to be presenting over here from the computer because I will be pointing things out, and you can look up on the screens. Know that we have the, what you have is what's on the screen, and then just a simplified version of the budget. The actual budget that goes into the State Board of Education is a lot more lengthy. This is the summary, and we're just thrilled to be to this point. If you go to page 1 of your handout, and you can look up here on the screen. It's probably easier to look on the screen as I'm going through this, because then you can kind of see what I'm looking at. So I always like to give the board a kind of a big picture view of where we get our money and in which funds and how we spend our money. This is reflective of our latest actuals. You could see that our biggest fund is the M&O fund. In public accounting, it's also synonymous with fund accounting. About 29 million, or 11.29% of our money comes from local sources, the biggest one being tax. State, 81.7% of the M&O fund is state generated, including 24 million of the state basic rate, which is a property tax. But you can see, then federal is almost 7%, or 17 million. You can see that the state is the biggest portion, and that's why it's very important what the state does at the state legislature, because it impacts us and the education of children. The local piece is also important, but they're all important. A lot of people will say, oh, the federal piece is not that big. Do we really need the federal piece? Yeah, we do. They fund specific targeted programs that we couldn't function without. School foods, child nutrition is our next fund. And you can see that we have, this year was the first year we were hit hard by COVID. The sales were way down. We get state revenue from the state liquor fees, and that's always very helpful. And then this year we had about 11.5 million. So in this case, it's flipped. The federal monies are the biggest contributor to the school food fund. Capital outlay is almost all local. Property tax is the big thing. We have capital leases and various other sources of revenue. 98% is local. We have a little bit of state, which we're trying to grow, and that's an ongoing effort. But the capital outlay fund, close to 20 million. Student activity fund, this is monies that's raised in the schools and is used at the schools, and it's it's all local, 100%, 6.1 million. The foundation, all local. It's raised through the foundation fundraisers and investments and those kinds of things. And that's the revenue that they experienced this year. And then the debt service fund, this year it was 20.2 million, and that is used to pay off our bonds. So you can see total all revenues, we're at 322 million. We're a big concern. Okay. If you go to the next page, expenses. The big takeaway here is that we are all about instruction because that's what we do. We teach kids. In the M&O fund, instruction is 72% of all expenses. And you can see the other categories down the line. It's interesting to note that district administration and staff, this includes all of the HR, payroll, purchasing, accounting, those kind of things, staff, plus administration and secretaries, is about 2% of the total. And then the big takeaway here is compensation. We are people. That's what we do. Not only do we serve people, children and their families, but also we hire people to provide those services. 91.5% is compensation in the general fund. And so that's big. School food services, once again, their compensation is less than 50%, but their non-compensation is about 7.6 million. This includes mostly food. And the food costs, as you know, are going up, and we're grappling with how best to budget with the rising food costs. Capital outlay fund, once again, almost non-compensation because we're building stuff and providing for the needs of our capital facilities. Student activity fund, almost all non-compensation. The foundation, almost all non-compensation on how they spend money, and the debt service is no compensation. So in total, we have 247 million that's spent in compensation and 83.9 in other things. That's why when Larry Hadley, our HR director, gets up there and talks about the settlement with employees, it's very important. It impacts the lives of thousands of people and their families. So that's how the money's spent. Where do we think we're going to be at the end of the year? The year closes on June 30th. We spent the whole month of July closing the books out and doing various accounting things. And then we get ready for our audit, which is in early September. Here are the balances as they stand today. The general fund has a balance of 38 million, the debt service about 1.2 million, capital a little under 4 million, child nutrition 2.7 million, student activities 502,000, and the foundation 4 million. Combined balance is 50,855,000. It's interesting to note that we try our best to keep as much money available for people and for education. Some people pride themselves. I've known districts and superintendents and business administrators who their goal is to build the fund balance as big as possible. That's not us. We want to get the money to the classroom. We suspect that we're going to grow, and I'll just come down here to the estimated changes. Whoops, jumped too far. We think that we're going to grow by about $3 million in the general fund, and these are just estimated assignments of where they'll go. That final assignment will not take place until August, when we have an exact accounting of where our balances are. The debt service is going to dip a little, their fund balance. Capital is going to go up a little. Child nutrition is going to go up a lot, and we'll talk about that later. Student accounting and foundation will be flat. Budget highlights. It's interesting to know the enrollment drives all of our funding. Well, not all of it, but a lot of it. And it drives our expenses too, because more students mean more teachers and staff. You can see I've got a little history here, 5-year history, and we've had pretty good growth. And then this was the pandemic year when some parents chose to keep their kids home, and we really ramped up a virtual program as well during the pandemic year. But then at the start of the current year we're in October, the enrollment came back to higher than pre-pandemic levels. We grew by 534 students, which is a very healthy growth. I just did a real conservative estimate because I like to be conservative, and I just put a 1.5%, close to 500. Honestly, I think we're going to grow more than that with all the building that's going on. But right now, it's a conservative estimate. But rest assured, we will go above 33,000 students for the first time in the history of Weber School District. What's the greatest need? Our greatest need is recruiting and retaining teachers and staff. We have a very hot labor market, and a world-class education for children is only possible with great teachers and staff. High-quality teachers ultimately determine the quality of experience for students. And as I pointed out on the previous sheets, almost 93% of our general fund is used for salary and benefits. Inflation at the same time is a significant concern, and we need to be competitive with salaries with other districts in order to retain and recruit high-quality teachers. And we've got a chart here of how we compare with neighboring districts. There's a couple of districts on there from Salt Lake County, but most of them are just right next to us. All of our neighbors, Bucks Elder, Davis, Ogden, the Cache school districts, the Cache Valley school districts, have a higher starting teacher salary than we do. We're at 46,000, and you can see of those districts, we're low. So when we met with our employee groups, our top priorities were to increase their compensation. And you already heard this earlier, and this goes to retaining and recruiting high-quality teachers. Funding steps and lanes, about 1.1 million. A base salary increase of 7.5%. That's 10,693,000 of additional money. Our health insurance program, another 1.1 million. We are also adopting a new short-term disability program of 327,000. The challenge that we had when we increased base salaries by 7.5% is that some of our categorical programs, this is all the cost for regular K-12 programs. Some of our large categorical programs don't have the similar increases, yet their teachers are on the same and their staff are on the same salary schedules. A categorical program is a program that has a set amount of funding, and they're supposed to live and function within that funding. Our biggest categoricals are special ed, CTE, Title I, those kind of programs. The special ed shortfall, because their increase was not 7.5% from the legislature, is about almost 1.3 million. The other categoricals, the various grants and other things like that we have that are on the same teacher salary schedule is a little over 1.1 million. Also, we're taking efforts to try and remain competitive with our maintenance and custodial. Our entry level steps start out on maintenance and custodial in the $12 an hour range. And this 67,000 lifts them into the high $13 an hour, trying to make sure that we recruit good individuals. Also, we're at the end of a 6-year effort to put a full-time office aide in every elementary. And this is the end of it. 3 part-time office aides to full-time, and that's exciting. And you ask any elementary principal or elementary staff, having a full-time office aide has been invaluable. These add up to 15.8 million. So then how do we propose to fund it? We estimate local revenue growth to be about 1.4 million new dollars. TSSA money, that's another state funding source, 304,000. The rise in the WPU of 6%, and that's conservatively based on the prior year WPUs, is 8.2 million. And then we are proposing a certified tax rate adjustment that will occur at our August board meeting of about 5.8 million. Let's look at capital outlay. The greatest need in our capital outlay is keeping up, it's the next page, is keeping up with the costs of construction and materials. Anyone who's done a small remodel on their house or bought a 2x4 knows that materials have really gone up. And the budget has been kept constant for years at 4.5 million. And this budget is used to help with update roofs, parking lots, flooring, grounds, and other needed upgrades. This 4.5 million is a tribute to the board's effort to get money to the classroom. And also, it was helpful that inflation wasn't an issue during many of these years like it is now. We are at a point where we need to beef up that budget. And so we're proposing an additional 1.5 million to fund roofs, parking lots, flooring, security improvements, and those kinds of things. Once again, the fund source will be a certified tax rate adjustment. Just for your information, if you look at the bottom of that page, we passed a bond, and we're so grateful to the voters and patrons of Weber County. The bond passed with a good majority on November 2nd, 2021, for much needed big projects. We have the new Westfield High School, which the name is just growing on me every day. I think it's really cool. That's out on the west side in Taylor. 157 million was our initial cost for that we bonded for. The new junior high school in West Haven, 51 million. New elementary school in West Haven, 34 million, and the rebuild of Roosevelt Elementary. As soon as the bond passed, we started work on these two big projects, and these two smaller projects have not started yet. And so that's where we're at with the bonding. Okay? If you go to the next page, let's talk about a truth in taxation. A truth in taxation is what it is it's a mechanism that the board, if they want to raise a tax rate above what's called the certified rate, and I'll explain that, they're required to have a hearing so the public knows what they're doing. But the local tax effort is essential. Weber School District is a property poor district. And what that means is that our assessed value compared to the number of kids is very residential, not a whole lot of businesses. And residential homes get a 45% exemption. And so we do not have a lot of business like, say, a Salt Lake City or a Murray or a Park City, where they have high assessed values per pupil. We're a property poor district. We have low assessed values per pupil. So when we levy a rate, we do not realize as much revenue as a high value district. The state steps in with multiple funding formulas to help provide for property poor districts. And those funding formulas are dependent upon local effort. They expect us to provide effort. And tax burden and education needs, there's a balance that's required. And our board's been good with this balance. The board has been sensitive to taxpayer burden, especially during the pandemic, when people were struggling and nervous and wondering what would happen with the economy. The board also has a responsibility, on the other hand, to fund the education of children. And recognizing this responsibility, the state legislature grants school boards the power to tax within prescribed limits. We also had a legislative audit that ended earlier this year. It was a long audit, and amongst two or three of their major suggestions or recommendations is that our tax rate was too low, that we need to relook at what our tax rates are. So here's our tax rate history. These two levies are called, well, I refer to them as state levies. The board has no control over those, the basic levy and the charter school levy. Those are set by the state legislature. And yet they appear on people's tax notices, and sometimes they get them confused, and they think oh, the school board did those. No, they didn't. That's the state legislature. It's kind of funny, little side note. The basic state levy used to be called the Uniform School Fund, Uniform School Levy, and we'd actually get complaints from people who said, I do not want to pay for uniforms, so, but, and I had to explain that's not what they're for. Anyway, the district debt service levy is set by the board, and it's not a state levy, but it's set by the board without the need for a truth and taxation process, and they set that levy where it's needed. And you can see we've kept that constant, which has been a great thing because it saves the taxpayer from being whipped back and forth with levy ups and down swings. And this helps pay for our projects and our bonds. These three levies are the district certified levies, and the certified rate is right here, and it is set by the State Tax Commission working with the county assessor. And the whole idea behind a certified rate is that as the property values go up, the rate goes down because the taxpayer in the aggregate is not to be harmed by rising values. On the same token, if the values come down like occurred in 2010, this certified rate will go up so that the entity is not harmed by lowering values. And you can see the certified rate has dropped every year for 5 years in a row. So people's tax rates have declined rapidly on these three rates that are controlled by the school board. How do we compare? You remember the legislative audit said that our rates were low, and they are low. When we compare with the Wasatch Front school districts, there are 15 of them. They go from Cache on the north to Nebo on the south. The average is right here at 006956. Weber is 14th. Only Salt Lake on the overall levy is lower, and they have a big property base. Board and voted leeways, these are these certified levies that are used primarily for operational costs. Here's the average, and Weber's 15th. I decided to take out the urban districts because they have a little different demographic and need and tax structure typically. So I concentrated on the large suburban districts that are similar to Weber district that are property poor as low assessed value per pupil. The average on the total levies right here, Weber is last. On the board and voted leeways, which are operational, which also get state aid for effort, Weber's last. I thought it was interesting. If we had the average levy, we would be raising an additional 14 million. If we had the same levy as Jordan, in other words, if we were tied for sixth on these suburban, we would have an additional 7.8 million. So our effort needs to be bolstered up. That's why we are proposing a truth in taxation hearing this August. And this is right now how it's going to look. And this is all estimated because we do not have the certified rates from the State Tax Commission. And I've been looking every day, and I've been texting Jeff and saying, the rates aren't in yet, the rates aren't in yet. And they usually come in the first half of June. So we're almost there. As you can see, here's our current rates, and here's our estimated. I just kept the basic and the charter at the same because we don't know if they're not final. The debt service levy, we are keeping it the same at 1343. We estimate that because of rising values, these rates are going to drop. And then we propose that we turn around and we keep the voted leeway up to at least 1060. Now, someone might say, well, the voted leeway, you can't tinker with that because the voters vote on that. But the voters clear 10 years ago, and well, actually longer than that, 2007, that's more than 10 years, 2007, they voted for an authorized amount that was well above 0011. And that authorized amount is a ceiling where we can go to. And so the voters have already authorized that. And so we need to, if we push that up and make a greater effort, it'll also increase any state matching funds. We're proposing that if we go to 1060, we're estimating we will garner 5.8 million for a needed salary increase for teachers and staff, and an additional 1.5 million for capital needs, for a total of 7,378,000. The cost on an average home is $91 with this scenario, or $7.58 a month. Once again, these are all estimates, and we will have final numbers hopefully in another week or two. Okay, let's go to the last page. Child nutrition is has an interesting history over the last 5 years. Just that top line alone, the federal dollars, 6.2 million. We get federal money for every lunch that we serve. We get federal money. If it's a paid lunch, we don't get much. In other words, if the child bought the lunch. But if it's a free lunch, we get a lot on federal. And you can see it was 6.2, 6.2, 6.2. Then this year, the first year that when we met after the shutdown, the federal money went to 11.5 million. And the reason why is because every lunch was considered a free lunch. We're estimating that by the end of this fiscal year, we still have 2 or 3 allotments to go, that we'll have 14.8 million in federal money. That's a lot. The state money has grown a little. These are from our state revenue sources. Lunch sales dropped because every lunch was considered a free lunch. Some of you are saying, well, what was this 408,000 or 38,000? That's off of our a la carte menus where kids can, particularly at the high schools, can buy something just with the cash they have or something off an a la carte menu. Our expenses, compensation, you can see it chugging along here. Food went from 5.2 to 5. You can see how steady that was. Then 5.5. We're estimating that it's going to be about 6.5 on the food, gone up $1 million. And then in fiscal year 23, we think that's going to go up even more. The balances in child nutrition, you can see they were dipping and then they've grown. We're going to have a healthy fund balance, but then we're going to then lose this federal revenue in the next year, and hopefully the lunch sales will come back. We have a new proposed lunch rates that is part of this budget. We've kept our lunch rates the same. Elementary will now go to $2. Junior high lunch is $2.50. High school lunch is $2.50. That, even though they've raised slightly, is still a great deal. You'd be hard pressed as a parent to beat that. Board President Ritchie, that's kind of my presentation. I know that you'll go to a hearing phase of this where people can comment, but we'll need two motions. This is the last chance you get to adjust the current year, fiscal year 22's budget, and that's in your packet. And so we have to have a motion to approve that budget, the fiscal year 22, and then another motion to approve the working budget for next year for fiscal year 23. And that's my presentation. And I hope I didn't go too fast. It took a lot of work to put that together, and tribute to my staff, Seth Pilkington, who's on vacation right now, does a lot of the work. Also, as he's leaving and being, we have an exchange in leadership roles. Nicole Mibus is going to be the new HR director. Larry's done a great job as the spokesman for the board and the administration with our employee groups. He is extremely organized, and I am waiting to see how organized Nicole will be. And I know that she will be very organized. I know she'll be organized. Anyway, that's all I have, and I'll go take a seat over there. And if you have any questions, you can ask.
Thank you, Dr. Peterson, for that short presentation.
It was short.
25 minutes. Having said that, we have to go through a process of a public hearing on the proposed budget. And with that, do you have a sign-up sheet? Thank you. We do have a sign-up sheet of 3 people who have signed up. I believe this is concerning the budget, I hope. The parameters are, if you would state your name, address, and then you will have 3 minutes to speak to the board, and we have a timer. So with that, the first one looks like, I believe it's Mr. Stuart Campbell. If you'd come to the mic, please, we need to record that.
Holler. Name is Stuart Campbell, Pleasant View, Utah. I sent an email to all of you earlier this morning. I see some nods. This does regard the budget. So, President of the board, superintendents, board members, my name is Stuart Campbell. I'm a resident of Pleasant View, and my kids attend school in Weaver School District. I'm here to ask the Weaver School District board to follow the newly passed HB 374, as well as the HB 243 that was passed in 2020. These 2 laws state that LEAs remove inappropriate and pornographic books and display visible warnings on anything sensitive in nature. Utah Attorney General Sean Ray stated just days ago in his June 2nd, 2022 memo that the Utah State Board of Education and individual school districts should immediately and strictly comply with state statutes, including HB 374, to remove pornographic books from all school libraries. The urgency is even greater for elementary and junior high libraries as they serve younger students. Implementation and compliance will protect children and help immunize schools from lawsuits for violating state law, which does affect the budget. He goes on to say, let me be very clear, whenever it involves children, pornography is poison, no question, no debate. Access to porn is already a public health crisis made worse by its prevalence online and via smartphones among teens and kids. For many children today, porn exposure and addiction comes as young as 9 years old. Sex exposure can have harmful physical, mental, and behavioral effects on children. He said, if it were up to me, I would take very proactive measures to remove any hint of pornography in our schools. I implore LEAs to make decisions that maximize the safety of our youth. Maybe you're thinking, we don't have inappropriate or pornographic books in WSD libraries. I have here a list, which I'll give you all, of over 100 inappropriate and pornographic in nature books in our school libraries, down to each school. And I have a daughter that's going into Orion next year, so that's why I'm concerned. It will take the link that I'll send you as well, which you had in the email today, will take you to a Google map of which books are found in which schools, and you can drill down and you can even read some of that disgusting content. And I hope that as we talk about the budget, that we are allocating resources to our libraries to be able to clean this filth out of our communities. These should not be in our district libraries. They are inappropriate for anyone, let alone children. And if they are deemed pornographic in nature, the cost could cost the district up to $250,000 in fines, again, based on HB 243. So we have done a lot of work. We have done a lot of the work already to locate these books. What can you do to help allocate funding to remove these types of books from our community so as to protect our children? And I also want to say thank you for your service, and I want to work with you. Appreciate it. Sincerely, Stuart Campbell.
Thank you, Mr. Campbell.
President, just while Stuart's passing that out, board, to elaborate just a little bit, House Bill 374, sponsored by Representative Ken Ivory, passed this last session. There were several bills that addressed curriculum, transparency, some of these kinds of things. This one was the only one that passed. Initially, there was a little bit of discussion between the Attorney General's office and the Office of Legislative Counsel as they're interpreting House Bill 374. As Stuart accurately stated just days ago, the Attorney General came out once again with some additional clarification. President Ritchie indicated this is my final meeting. I know that moving forward, incoming Superintendent Butters will work very closely with the State Board of Education, the Attorney General's office, Heidi Alder, our in-house counsel, to make sure that this district is absolutely in compliance with HB 374 and what guidance we're getting from the Attorney General's office. So,
Thank you, Superintendent Stevens, for that clarification. We muchly appreciate it. Our next, Bryce Jones, does that sound right? Bryce Jones from West Haven or West Weber? About Cody Okai. I was close.
It's close enough, and it's not the worst I've ever heard.
Oh,
do you want to bring that down?
Lollipop deal today. So what I have to say here is requesting that something be evaluated for more money in the budget. While a lot of what I say may not be directly in that, that's the general consensus of it. Okay. I'm glad I didn't have to follow the Three Amigos guy. That would have been a hard act to follow. And I'm also going to rain on everybody's parade. I, like every other American, am deeply saddened by the events that took place in Uvalde, Texas. I think the innocent lives lost. I think of them often. As a father of three, 12, 10, and 6, with my 6-year-old being a special needs student in Roy Elementary, who's completely helpless when he's not at home with us, I find my mind wandering to these issues often. I don't have any extreme ideas. I don't want to arm all the teachers. I don't want to turn our schools into military installations. And I don't want to place a police officer in every school. The fact is that our police are already stretched far too thin, and they need to focus on law enforcement duties. And they only have to worry about the schools when they need to respond, performing training or normal resource officer duties. Our police are are busy enough. But that being said, in my years with the students in the Weaver School District, I don't see police at our schools nearly often enough. So my background is I'm a career security professional. I've got over 17 years of experience. Currently, I oversee and train all 200 officers on the Homeland Security contract that covers all of Utah and Wyoming. My officers safeguard many of the federal facilities here in Utah. I'm a certified instructor in multiple different disciplines within this, including one certification through the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center. Security is often an afterthought, as we're seeing here in Uvalde and after every one of these tragic shootings that take place. We can't afford on this one to wait any longer. I saw in the budget that there was a $1.5 million, but it also included parking lots and things like that. I'm going to kind of paraphrase some of this so that I'm not boring you guys to death, and I'll email this one to you guys. Most of what we need to do can be accomplished through training for the teachers on basic security principles, safety precautions, phased in overtime upgrades to the physical countermeasures at our schools. The most costly part would probably be that we need more people involved in this at the schools on the ground that are specifically focused to that and don't have other duties. Currently, the resource officers are still police officers, and I think they end up doing overtime other places besides that. These people could, if we did do something like that, these people could also be supplemented by teachers if the teachers so chose to get a concealed carry permit or something like that and receive additional training. The concealed carry permit shouldn't be enough for that one as far as responding to those events. It's woefully negligent almost. There's other things that team could do as well. Help with firearm safety classes voluntarily after hours, because I think accidental deaths and suicides are a bigger killer of K through 12 students than school shootings are. Am I getting close to my time?
I think so. Are we at 3? Yeah,
So
if you could just wrap it up.
Yep,
Mr.
it's
Aoki,
just
that'd be great.
the last page.
Okay,
So
thank
I
you.
don't say this very often, but not only would I be okay with, but I'd be happy to see an increase on my annual property tax, my income tax, and sales tax if I needed to have that happen for if it was utilized for these purposes. I'd also be happy to volunteer and assist in any way possible if you guys needed that, whether it be with consulting or helping put things into action or just advice in general. I'll leave it at that. Thank you guys for your time. I appreciate everything you guys do for the community and for our students.
President, would you let me just take a moment? I really appreciate your comments, and I think it'd be important for the board and those in attendance. This has been something that is such a high priority. Just a little bit of history following the tragedy of Sandy Hook. We brought our law enforcement partners together, and that was not our school resource officer. That was chiefs of police and our sheriff. And we had a series of meetings, probably over the course of about a 3-month period, where we wanted to build, as a school district, a comprehensive and sustainable safety plan. And I was so pleased that plan was really driven by our law enforcement partners. That plan has 7 basic elements to that. It's comprehensive. Let me just kind of mention those. There's a couple of areas, and I'll get to it, that I think it's the right time to revisit and do some upgrades, and you've hit on a couple of those. There was no question coming from our law enforcement partners that the number one priority was a video security system. And that cost us several $1 million to install. That video security system is such that any law enforcement vehicle coming into our schools could access any camera in the school from their vehicle. Also, all of that could be live streamed from a central command center. So again, this is not a surveillance system. This is a security system. And we've been told by our law enforcement that any time that there would be an incident, that would allow law enforcement to come in harder and faster. The second thing, at that time, we knew we needed a new, a different, a more effective standard response protocol. At the time we had, I thought, something that was outdated. it had a color system to it, and I can't remember how many colors there were to it. And so the notion was, if there was an incident in the school, somebody would come on the sound system and say, we're now in code orange or code purple, and then people have to rush to their manual to figure out. And that was just not an effective system. Um, uh, we ended up adopting the standard response protocol from the I Love You Guys Foundation. We were the first entity in the state of Utah to adopt that protocol. Since then, I believe every school district, as well as the state of Utah, has adopted that same standard response protocol. We went through a series of strategies dealing with building hardening. And that's, I'm not going to go into great detail there, but here's an area where, quite frankly, I think we need to come back and have some revisit. And incoming Superintendent Butters and the board is going to begin that process. The pandemic kind of worked against us in some ways with building hardening, as we're trying, for example, to create better airflow to keep, kids safe from a virus. Opening doors, opening windows, it compromised these elements. It's time to revisit the aspect of the plan dealing with building hardening. The school resource officers, at that time, we went through an extensive process with our law enforcement partners to clarify and upgrade really our interlocal agreements with each law enforcement agency. I think this is one also that could be revisited, especially as it relates to our elementary schools. The emphasis, I think, has been probably more toward the secondary schools, junior highs and high schools, but I think it would be wise, as the board assesses this overall plan, that's one that could be looked at. We felt like at that time it was important, and it has proven to be such, that there was a way for students to report. That see something, say something notion. Initially, we developed our own. Our tech folks developed our own. Since then, we have adopted the Safe UT app, and that has been very, very helpful. I can't tell you how many tips that we've had over the years where there's been, whether it's a bullying or harassment or some kind of a threat. One that is not talked about but is very active in this school district, led by Lane Finley, who's a former lieutenant with the Weber County Sheriff's Office, and that is a threat assessment. The threat assessment and management model that we use is from Sigma. It's used by many colleges and universities. And again, probably not appropriate to go into a lot of detail on that Sigma threat assessment, but that's something that happens regularly, constantly in our school district, in our area. And the last thing that I'll say, that I'm just very pleased that this school district, the board, has moved forward on, deals with mental health. Um, uh, we have hired in the last 3 years 15 mental health specialists that are in our schools, and we're adding 5 more for this upcoming school year. Lori Rasmussen has done an outstanding job leading that program. But as we've seen in so many instances, there's often some mental health related concerns. If we can get some mental health specialists that are working with young people who are at risk. We also use a risk assessment system from a prevalence model that has been very beneficial. I think my uh, key takeaway for the board and for the audience is that it's not just one thing for school safety, not just one thing. It's a comprehensive plan. There's always need to come back and revisit every element of that plan. We have a number of new principles that, for example, the building hardening strategies, they need to be brought to speed on, and then made sure on a daily basis that those building hardening strategies are put in place. So Sir, thank you very much for bringing this to our attention. I just wanted to highlight that the school district, the school board has been very involved and active. This is my greatest concern. And it's also time to revisit, especially, like I said, in light of what we've come through the last 3 school years. No, it's only 2 calendar years, but 3 school years with the pandemic, because it has created a different dynamic. But board, I compliment you on coming together later this summer under incoming Superintendent Butters' leadership and assessing this comprehensive strategy, making some upgrades, adjustments, and so forth, and continuing this great work to keep our children safe.
Thank you for that explanation, Dr. Stevens. We much appreciate it. There is nobody else on the list. Is there anybody else who would like to address the board, though? Seeing none, I will close the budget hearing, and I would entertain a motion for the approval of the final budget for the year 2021-2022 budget. Bruce, second by Paul. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you very much. The next item on the agenda would be the initial approval of the working budget for the year 2022-2023. Janice, second by Dean. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you. We've come to the end of our agenda. It's going to be a sad farewell to Dr. Stevens, but he doesn't live very far away, so you can walk over anytime you'd like to. It's a lot of years that you've been serving with us. We're going to miss you, but you're going to miss us. We love you. We wish you the best. Leela, enjoy life. And I would entertain a motion to close this meeting. Paul, second by Jan. All in favor?
Aye.
Nobody wants to say aye. Aye. Motion carries. Thank you. Be safe. Thanks for coming in. Thank you, Mr. Campbell, Mr. Aoki. Appreciate that. We will work forward.